Before we get started today, I just wanted to give a shout out to my pants. Because they're super cute. Hi, it's Kyla. So today I'm here to talk about WandaVision. And I just finished it yesterday. I know I'm very late to the party, but I just finished it yesterday and I have a lot of thoughts, both from myself and from things I have read online, and thoughts on some of the more problematic natures of the show. So to start, my own thoughts on WandaVision are that I really liked it. I really liked it when I first watched it. I started watching it when it came out like a year ago, and I got through episode 5, and then I stopped watching it because I'm in this really weird space where like watching new things is really like hard for me. Like I have to be in a really specific mood for it because I'm just super sensitive to new material. Yeah, it's weird, but that's not the point. Anyway, point is, I stopped watching episode 5, and then this week I was like, dude, I want to finish WandaVision. I want to watch WandaVision. And so I picked up where I left off, and I really liked it. But I really liked it when I first was watching it last spring too, because I was laughing so much. I thought it was so funny and so creative and so fun and awesome. And then on Wednesday, I happened to be talking to my best friend, and I didn't even mention I had started watching WandaVision again. But she brought up WandaVision based on a conversation we were having. Like I just read this Tumblr post about how WandaVision is really problematic because of Wanda's Romani heritage. So I watched the second half of the show with that in mind and thinking about that, and I still really liked it. I still thought it was really well done and creative and amazing, but I was also very concerned with what we saw. Yeah, there's a lot of layers to it, but I've done a lot of research, and I'm here today to talk to you about why Wanda should be Romani in the MCU and why she's not. This isn't a new thing. In the comics, in the Marvel comics, Wanda is half Romani, half Jewish. Her and Pietro were raised by parents. Their dad was Jewish and their mom was Romani. And that's a big piece of their storyline in the comics. It's a big part of where they come from. It's a big part of their heritage. It's a big part of their childhood. It's a big part of them. And then when they joined the MCU in Age of Ultron, they completely took that out. There's no mention of their Romani or Jewish heritage. There's not a word said about it. And I think some people were hoping that with WandaVision, we would maybe see some change to that maybe like, oh, like her off-screen parents were Romani and we just never, like it just happened to never be mentioned, and now we can learn more about that in WandaVision. But the opposite happens. It's more purposefully shown that they're very aware of her Romani heritage in the comics and choose to ignore it in the movies. So this isn't a new issue. This has been an issue since they cast Elizabeth Olsen in Age of Ultron. There's an Atlantic article. I'm going to link all my resources down in the comments. There's an Atlantic article from 2013 that talks about Elizabeth Olsen being cast as Wanda in Age of Ultron. So Romani is, for those of you who don't know, Romani is it's an ethnicity. It's an ethnicity just like Jewish is an ethnicity. And according to Wikipedia, the Romani, also colloquially known as the Roma, are an Indo-Aryan ethnic group, traditionally nomadic itinerants living mostly in Europe, with diaspora populations in the Americas. This is not Romanian or Roman, it's Romani. It's a different thing, unrelated to Romanian or Roman. Romani do not have a home country or nationality. They are a diasporic population. So the Romani people, you probably don't If you don't know what the Romani people are, who they are, that's not surprising, and you probably know them as this word. It's a slur. It's pejorative. It's the equivalent of, I consider it to be the equivalent of the N-word. I'm not going to say it, but that is what you probably know them as. It's a racial slur. It's not an okay word to be using. I didn't know that Romani existed. I didn't know that word was a slur. I didn't know that word even referred to anything. I thought it was just kind of like a way of living. I didn't think it referred to any like type of people until probably like senior year of high school, when this same best friend, was researching the Romani and like did a whole bunch of research into them and told me all about the Romani and their incredible persecution and existence. I didn't even know they existed. The most common Romani, the only Romani I've ever personally seen that I can remember in media, is Esmeralda and her people in The Hunchback of Notre Dame. So if you know the song God Help the Outcasts from The Hunchback of Notre Dame, Esmeralda sings that. She is Romani. She is not that word, she is Romani. Okay, so like I said, Wanda being Romani is not a new thing. It's not a new issue. It's not known. There's a lot of discussion about, and a lot of defense about why Wanda isn't Romani in the MCU, and chalking it up to the fact that at the time Age of Ultron came out, Marvel and X-Men universes were separate and were owned by different companies, and so they couldn't use the same storyline that Pietro, Wanda's twin brother, that Pietro has in the X-Men. They couldn't use that same storyline of them being mutants, and so they had to come up with a new background and storyline for the Maximoff twins. That being said, Magneto is the most famous Jewish character in the Marvel canon, and his wife Magda was Romani. Wanda and Pietro's Romani heritage was canon for decades. That's their parents, including in their non-mutant backstories. So they have two backstories. It's a little convoluted in the comics. I haven't personally read the comics. I'm knowing all this from outside research. But both of their backstories include Romani heritage. This article, I'm reading from the article, the Daily Dot article. So although this depiction often had problematic undertones, the Romani heritage often had problematic undertones. Wanda is literally a mysterious foreign witch, a damaging stereotype that acquired more nuance in later comics. But instead of updating Wanda and Pietro as modern Jewish/Romani superheroes, much like how Black Panther's charismatic M'Baku started out as a villain named Man-Ape, Disney whitewashed them. This casting choice was divisive in 2013, when The Atlantic highlighted the negative connotations of casting a white, blonde actress as Scarlet Witch. Roma people are a marginalized ethnic minority, and Disney chose to erase their presence from the MCU. And then we have the rewrite. So it's like, okay, they already erased their Roma heritage. They already did that. And now what does the rewrite look like? The rewrite was rather tone-deaf because it involves Wanda and Pietro volunteering for neo-Nazi experiments. In the comics, their original parents were Holocaust survivors. Let's just think about that for a second. Like, how tone-deaf is it to be like, oh yeah, these characters who in the comics, their parents are Holocaust survivors. Let's just make them join Nazi experiments. That makes total sense, right? Like, it's totally fine. I saw one argument that mentioned the Nerdist article. I'm pretty sure it was the Nerdist article. It says that they joined S.H.I.E.L.D. not knowing it was Hydra. They just joined the experimentations for S.H.I.E.L.D. not knowing it was Hydra. I think that's completely false. I think that's a misunderstanding of the information. In Age of Ultron, they say they join Hydra, and then even in WandaVision, we see the Hydra symbol on the door, and then Agatha says, quick question. Agatha says this in WandaVision. Quick question. Your reaction to the bombing of your civilian apartment building and the murder of your parents was to join an anti-freedom terrorist organization? And Wanda says, we thought we were changing the world. So they knew it was Hydra. They knew it was Hydra. They knew it was Hydra they were joining. Like, and also in Age of Ultron, they're fighting against the Avengers. Like, they know they're Hydra, they know they're not S.H.I.E.L.D. anymore, but they're still choosing to do this because they want to change the world. Like, I'm sorry. Like, even in this universe, if your parents aren't Holocaust survivors, you can't just erase that and then make them become joining the Nazis, neo-Nazis. Like, that's not okay. That's so tone deaf. It's so cringy. It's so scary that they just did that and they're like fine with it. Anyway, Joss Whedon also ignored the most obvious solution to Wanda and Pietro's non-mutant backstory, Django and Maria Maximov, their Romani parents from the comics. So there was literally a solution to them not being able to have Magneto as their parents in the comics already. Like, they didn't need to go and make them join Nazis. There was already a storyline that they could have used that would have respected their Romani and Jewish heritage. But no, let's just whitewash them and make them nondescript Eastern European. Continuing in the Daily Dot article, as is often the case, Wanda and Pietro's whitewashing feels like an attempt to neutralize them. It frames their ethnicity as a problem to be avoided rather than an opportunity to celebrate an underrepresented group. This also means that Marvel could cast famous white actors instead of sourcing an unknown Romani actor during a period when the MCU was visibly uninterested in racial diversity. That point about neutralizing, I think, is the biggest thing. Because yes, there would have been a lot of challenges with making Wanda Romani. There are a lot of things, from what I've heard, there's a lot of stereotypes that are perpetuated in the comics that are harmful. It would have been hard to navigate. But the fact that they just cast all that aside and don't even try, it just makes me sad. It makes me really sad. So, and then not only that, also in the Nerdist article, not only that, but Wanda's room in Captain America Civil War has crosses on the wall and a cross necklace on her dresser. No other character is seen with religious paraphernalia that I know of, and yet the historically Jewish girl gets crosses. I read another article that was arguing that this could be because maybe she was gifted it by like Captain America or something, as like your brother just died, here's a gift to like remember him by. But even if that's so, like just having that, like there's no crosses in Cap's room that we see, like I don't even know if we ever see Cap's room, but there's no crosses there. Like, why does the Jewish girl get crosses? That's just so questionable. So here's the big deal with WandaVision, though. So that's the past. That's all. That's what we already know about Wanda and the issues with whitewashing Wanda and Pietro. But what about today with WandaVision? This article from Mike.com is titled, "As a Romani Witch, I Can't Stand WandaVision." So this is the big thing. There are very few Romani perspectives out there, like Romani voices out there. From what I've read and from what I've heard, the Romani are taught to assimilate more than anything. And so they don't often tell people they're Romani. They're taught to assimilate, they're taught to hide, because otherwise they're genocided. So there's not much of their voices out there. So the fact that this article is from a Romani witch is huge. I give it a lot more merit. I give it a lot more consideration because there's so few Romani voices out there. And so when someone speaks up, I want to listen, and I think we all should. So Elizabeth Olsen, Vanity Fair interview, a podcast on Vanity Fair. Still watching by Vanity Fair, WandaVision, we interrupt this program with Elizabeth Olsen back in January of 2021. First, before I say this, I love Elizabeth Olsen as Wanda. I think she does an incredible job. I think she's an incredible actress. I think she does a great job. I think it's really well done. So hearing this and like seeing her do this makes me personally really sad and torn too, because it kind of makes me lose respect for her. Okay, so talking about the outfit that Scarlet Witch wears on the Halloween episode, which is the classic Scarlet Witch costume from the comics, Olsen says, "I was so excited. We have a Halloween episode and they were trying to figure out how big of a nod to the character we were going to do. And it did start off with a classic Scarlet Witch costume. It was kind of like a G-word slur. It was kind of like a thing that has to wear a headband, and I fought for it. I was like, no, we have to go full into it. This is like the greatest thing. If Paul's doing it, I'm doing it. So then the Mike article, the Romani Witch, says, but it should be painfully obvious that neither the Scarlet Witch's headband nor leotard is part of our culture. It is not, as Olsen offensively claimed, a thing. And passing it off as such only layers on the misrepresentation. Many Roma, like myself, are frustrated that a rare opportunity for mainstream representation character boils down to a white lady in cosplay, especially when so many talented Roma actresses abound. Wanda's Romani ethnicity has been well stated in the comic books, sometimes capturing the discrimination and violence that Roma face, and other times falling flat and stereotypical. So yes, Wanda's Romani heritage in the comics is complicated. It's not always perfect, but MCU had a chance to do something with that and make it powerful and meaningful. We know they can do it. Like that one article states, they did it with M'Baku. They did it with Black Panther. They can do it with Wanda, and they just chose not to. That was a deliberate choice. So the same woman who wrote the Mike article as Romani Witch, I Can't Stand WandaVision, she tweeted about it on her Twitter. And she said, I wrote about how Disney erased Scarlet Witch's Romani backstory and why details like WandaVision's Sokovian fortune teller joke aren't a neutral choice. Going back to that whole thing, MCU is trying to be neutral about this. They're not being neutral. In this episode 6, the Halloween episode, Wanda says when her kids ask what she's dressed up as, she says, I'm a Sokovian fortune teller. In case you didn't know, the Roma are commonly known to be fortune tellers. So if it's supposed to be a nod to that, it's just really insensitive and stereotypical, and also just makes a bigger issue of showing that, like, they're aware of her Roma heritage. They know what they're doing, and they're doing it anyway. Like, it's not okay. Okay, so the biggest thing I want to talk about today is the Tumblr post. So the Tumblr post is from EarnestDesire on Tumblr. They'll be linked in the comments. And they are Romani, and they wrote a really powerful post about their feelings about WandaVision. You can tell it's from the heart. I could feel their passion in the Tumblr post. I highly encourage you to go read it. It's really well written. It's really well thought out. It's very emotional. It's very honest and raw and powerful. In their original post, they commented in a reply to someone else. They said, Marvel knew what they were doing. They'd already faced the backlash for Tilda Swinton. They just know that Romani aren't important enough for anybody to care. That's the thing. They're getting away with this. They are getting away with this. Because no one knows that the Romani exist. No one knows who the Romani are. They're not important. They're like, in a world, in an age where cultural awareness and respect for heritage, people's heritage, is so common, and like we're so aware of slurs, like the fact that we're still using the G slur and like not even aware that the Romani exist, and not like talking about the fact that Wanda is supposed to be Romani and she's whitewashed, it's just really sad. Like, it just makes me so frustrated and sad that we hear about all the people who were hurt in the Holocaust. We know there were people other than Jews. We know there were groups targeted, but we have no idea. We're never taught about the Roma and how the Romani were targeted in the Holocaust, or before that, or any period in history when they've been persecuted. Okay, so they know the Romani aren't important enough for anyone to care. It was a slap in the face to cast Olsen in that role. It was a slap in the face to take Scarlet Witch's Romani backstory away from her, particularly if they were going to make her a hero. If they make a live-action Hunchback of Notre Dame, will Disney make Esmeralda white too? I like this part, particularly if they were going to make her a hero. So, like, there's some arguments that are like, oh, they didn't want to make her Romani because they didn't want to perpetuate the stereotype of Romani being evil, or shifty, or like any of that, and painting them as a villain. But Scarlet Witch is a hero. Wanda is a hero. Yeah, she's a more complicated hero, but The MCU abounds with complicated heroes. They should have made her Romani. And then this person says, sheesh, I need to go to sleep. I got triggered by images of Wanda in a 1950s housewife costume pretending to be Samantha from Bewitched because what the actual F? It's like the most heartbreaking, triggering thing they could make a Roma woman fantasize about. And that's the biggest thing that I haven't seen a single person talking about this besides this person on Tumblr. So then they write a whole post dedicated to explaining what they mean by that. So Bewitched is a sitcom from the 60s, and the second episode of WandaVision is modeled after Bewitched, largely. We also see Bewitched in her dad's suitcase full of TV shows in episode 8 when they're flashing back. And Bewitched, I haven't seen it. I've looked for people talking about the problematic elements of Bewitched. Haven't seen a single thing besides what this person said. So I'm going to read what this person said. So Samantha is the main character in Bewitched. The Bewitched focuses around a witch Samantha the witch, who marries a classic white, I think, Christian dude. They're like a different species in Bewitched or something. I'm not sure. But let me read what this person says. Samantha, the witch, her parents have no permanent home. They have century-old customs that baffle and even frighten Darren, her husband, and other humans. They're sneaky and they lie a lot, and they often use their powers for personal gain, including theft. The witches and warlocks look white, of course, but they aren't really the same as the normal humans of the series. That hit a lot of Romani people where it hurt, back then and in reruns. One of the witches is even named Esmeralda, in a direct nod to the famous Roma character from Hunchback of Notre Dame. That's the history of Bewitched. That's the issues with Bewitched. And then they just have this supposedly historically Roma character acting out that life and mimicking that TV show. I have some issues with that. So then this person talks about assimilate to survive, and they talk about how assimilating to survive is the way of Roma life. It's how they survive. It's how they survive. Everyone is taught to hide their Romani heritage. So this person says, watching Wanda Maximoff, a Roma superheroine, dream herself into perfect assimilation in time after time, place after place, that's really effing twisted. She dreams about being normal. She dreams about putting down roots. She's constantly assaulted with the possibility that she might not be normal enough to live safely or to have children. Assimilation is a story here, and that is an integral part of what it means to be Romani. I can't even. So Romani have no voice on an international stage. We have no seats in Congress, few politicians at all outside Hungary. We have a handful of published writers worldwide and even fewer prominent actors on screen. We are invisible, often by our own design. I have wrestled a lot with that as I've grown older. How much are we to blame for our own erasure? But then I remember this. And then they post pictures of lost headshots of Romani people. And I remember that the Nazis killed nearly half of our total European population in World War II. I remember this. It's a picture of when the French government began forcibly deporting and repatriating their Romani population in 2010. I remember that to be Romani means to live with a constant fear of homelessness, of statelessness, to teach your children to be chameleons, to be an outsider in the country where your grandparents were born. We don't deserve to be erased, and it wasn't right for Marvel to whitewash our pain. Our pain is red, blood red, scarlet even. I hope that's clear enough. I hurt reading that Tumblr post. I hurt a lot, and I am just so hurt that Marvel took WandaVision and Wanda and such a beautiful character with so much potential and misused and abused and ignored, but then also half poked at her Romani heritage, and just the whole thing just makes me really, really sad. Honestly, it makes me sad, and it makes me mad too. It makes me mad, it makes me sad, it makes me upset, it makes me not happy. And besides this post from Tumblr, I haven't seen anybody critiquing or criticizing or questioning the twisted colonial Western perspective, that of course Wanda would watch sitcoms as a kid and strive to live a normal Western life in America. It's the American dream. Who wouldn't want that? She moves to Westview. She replays sitcoms over and over, and we get this history that, like, oh yeah, it's because she watched sitcoms her whole life and just wanted that life. Like, that's problematic. That's not like some fun character detail. That's like a problematic choice that Marvel made to perpetuate the idea of the American dream and the idea that Western society is better. Like, what? Like, that's not okay. Like, that's not okay. Like, having Wanda just constantly wanting to be living this Western life is not appropriate in any way, shape, or form. And yeah, it's funny. Yeah, they did a good job with it. Yeah, technically it's really well made. Guess what? It's insensitive and it hurts people. It literally hurts people. Like, this perpetuation hurts people of this myth of the American dream and the myth that Western society is better than any other society. I don't like it. I don't like it. I'm not happy. I'm not a fan. It's a no from me. Oh yeah, I wish I saw more people talking about this. I am really disappointed that I see so few people talking about this. I watched a video, I'll link it in the comments, about Wanda, not in the comments, I'll link it in the description, that goes through like each of the sitcoms that WandaVision mimics. And it talks about how, like, yeah, it's like fun, like she just wants to be a Western woman, like it's fun, it's normal, like ha ha ha, like no, I'm so sick of this narrative, like ugh. I'm so sick of this narrative that obviously she should want to be a housewife and assimilate to Western society, because obviously that's what she should want. Like, assimilation is the only option. Like, this whole thing of like the melting pot, like, nah, we're not a salad. We don't mix cultures. You assimilate to our culture or else. Ugh. Okay, I'm done. That's all I have to say today. I hope someone watches this and learns something. And I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below, please. Please let me know if you liked WandaVision and if hearing all this changes your perspective of it, because it certainly changed mine. Thanks for watching again, and I'll see you later. Bye.